Welcome to Watching the Throne on the Late Night Chat Network, episode 12. Welcome back, everybody. JT is joining us again on the eve of his surgery, everybody. But you'll have to wait till his return to Late Night Chat to hear all about that one. So there's a little sneak peek for you guys. This guy's putting in work. Look how determined he is to get this out on time.
Well, you know what, man? I would have felt like a dick if I didn't somehow make sure we got at least a one out for this week. Next week should be fine. I can
break our streak. I appreciate it. So yeah, here we are, guys, again, getting together to discuss Game of Thrones. We're on season 2 now, second episode, and I think we can both agree this is definitely coming out at a slower pace. The storyline so far this time around, eh?
Oh yeah, I noticed that too. This one, and it was a little bit just I wasn't. I don't know. Just a quick, for you, but I wasn't a big fan of this episode. I don't think I mean, there was a couple good parts for myself, but
I think just after the first season, all the big things that they kind of set up, when you see all these people go on their separate paths in this season, I think it's probably just maybe not as exciting at first because they got to build up all these separate storylines again for everybody, right? Because I think everybody was kind of in the same spot previously. Now that everyone's separated, they got to build up every individual storyline for these guys moving forward, right?
Yeah, that's what I've noticed too. I've noticed that now that everybody's not in the same area, generally speaking, as the last episode. Yeah,
and this is kind of how the show gets, honestly, until the last season is you're going to be following so many different storylines now. There's some things that are going to cross over, obviously, but this is kind of what the show becomes. And you're going to have your favorite storylines, maybe some over others, I would say. And, there's some certain characters that you'll like, but they keep things interesting because they're going to continually introduce new people and move a lot of these storylines along, right? So big things happen. But I think it's one of those things where this is one of those seasons where they got to kind of do a lot of legwork now in order to build up these stories for us to be seeing big things happen again, right? So unfortunately, it's kind of a little bit of sweeping of the decks here. They kind of got to deal with all the fallout of what happened from the first season, because so many big things happened there at the end that now they got to kind of deal with all that shit, the fallout of characters, right? So yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think it's definitely going to get better as it goes on, but I think it's definitely been a slow start. I think that is the case, and like I said, from talking to Christina, she agreed in that sense as well about season 2 being that way, right?
And I'm not taking it from any of I've heard you guys say it. And she said probably the weakest of the bunch, but that's all I heard from her really when it came to that. So I'm trying to go into it still light-footed, so that it keeps me interested in the following season after this.
Yeah, right? It's still worth watching. Don't get me wrong. I just think, I mean, I'm not bored yet, but I think you know what I mean? It's just where we left off and where we are now. You know what I mean? It's just
difference,
right? So
yeah,
and we lost a couple of big characters along the way, right? So I think that's going to also, affect your enjoyment of it until you meet more interesting people, right? So
that always happens. I mean,
yeah, it's life.
With every show, with every reality. Yeah, there's some boring people that come around. Then you just move on to the next. That's it.
Not everyone's destined to be on your journey throughout the whole thing, right? I mean, not
everyone's destined to be on the throne, brother.
That's right. So let's get into what happened here in the episode. Now that we've given you our general thoughts here. So it starts off with, this one's called the Nightlands. Okay, this is season 2, episode 2 of Game of Thrones here, the Nightlands.
Mm-hmm.
And a man who is locked in a cage at the start of this episode speaks to Arya and asks for water, while another man that's in the same cage ends up threatening her. She says she's not scared.
It actually started off with her, looking at the beautiful river. I thought, the scenery was great. And then I realized she's pissing by the creek, right? Because she has to. She's hiding, right? She's got to make sure nobody sees her. So that was the first, I think, that
right.
I was looking at, oh, nice. There's gonna be something nice finally, like.
Yeah, that was the first thing you see. I just I like how you found that much more important than the events that preceded it, though. But okay, let's go with that. Yeah.
No, I just wanted to bring it up.
Well, it is relevant to what happens later on when she's talking to the other dude that's with her, right? I mean, about her being a boy, so she has to piss in hiding essentially because the fact that she's trying to convince people that she's a boy, right?
Yeah.
But
I had to point that out. Sorry, guys. Sorry, Game of Thrones lovers.
That's why it's the comments you get from JT. so yeah, she says she's not scared by them. After the armor apprentice guy says that he is, and that she should watch herself and don't trust these guys that she's talking to in the cage. And then that's when guys from King's Landing, knights, or I guess they're
I think they're like guards or knights.
Yeah. They roll up on the horses there. And basically the Night's not Night's Watch. What the hell are they called? He makes them they mention it later on in the episode too. What they're called?
The ones from the King's Landing and the Night's
Commander,
Watch,
city commander. Yeah, like it's basically like they have their own like their own army essentially for the city, like things that happen within the city, right? So like they sent people out, as we noticed, to look for Robert Baratheon's bastard sons in light of the rumors that are going around. But Arya thinks that they're looking for her, so she runs and hides. And because she's convinced that they're still out there looking for her, which they are. But in this case, you find out that these men were actually looking for Gendry, or Gendry, I think his name is pronounced. And that's Jay, if you want to put up his picture, this is the armor apprentice that we got introduced to, that they said that's interesting helmet that they were looking for at the end of the last episode there. So
hold on, I'll find it.
Gendry Baratheon is he is a Baratheon, unbeknownst to a lot of people, I think, including himself, because he doesn't know who his father is, right? So, but to us as the viewers, we figured this out already about him, and he's actually he's with Arya along their journey there as like kind of like stowaway type people, right? Just finding work as they go. So this guy that's kind of watching over them, he like takes a knife and like puts it to the guard's balls essentially, and says, basically threatens to nick it off, and there's nowhere around for him to get it fixed in the woods here. So it's like, maybe you should go back to King's Landing. Yeah, get the fuck up out of here, right? Like, so that was pretty cool. Like he just was like, I don't know who that is, like, and then they make it very clear, hey, if you guys know who this kid is, there's a reward involved. We'll be back or whatever. But the guy's like, okay, we're gonna go now, because obviously he upset them at the time. He had a knife to his nuts, so they kind of got the fuck out of there really quick, right? So
I'm just double checking which photos it is. I'm just trying to see.
I can bring it up if you don't have it from the episode.
Is it the guy with the armor, or is it the young kid?
It's the young kid that's with Arya at the start. And
this
from
guy,
there,
not this one, is it? I'm pretty sure it's this one, if I'm not mistaken. The one that tells her to whip it out.
Yeah, that's the guy. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's Gendry Baratheon. Yeah.
All right.
So that's that character. We know a little bit more about him now as of this episode. Then we cut over to Lord Varys, who's catching up with Tyrion's whore, collecting info on him. So
this guy seems to be everywhere. He's a little sneak, eh?
He is. I mean, that's his MO, right? That's it. It's he basically, we cut over to him and we see him talking to the woman that Tyrion brought with him there to King's Landing that was against his father's wishes. So he kind of learns this in passing while talking to her, and how he came across, how they met, Tyrion and her, and everything else. So Lord Varys knows everything just from a simple conversation behind closed doors with this woman. Tyrion walks into this, and then basically tells him, takes him to the side. He's like, okay, listen, cut the crap. Like, I know what the fuck you're up to. I'm not Ned Stark. I know how the game is played. Don't fuck with me. Like, he threatens him essentially. Yeah, he says it. I'll have you fucking leg. I forgot what he says, but something along those lines. He's like, I'll take care of you if you fucking come for me like this. Like, he's like, don't threaten me, because he's like, oh yeah, well, don't you think you should be at the council meeting or whatever? Wouldn't it be interesting if your father your father sent you here? That's right. And this nice woman that you brought along with you. He said, he's just dancing around the fact that he knows if he delivered this message maybe to his father that he'd be in shit because he went against his orders, right? and he doesn't like the fact that he's involved. He's getting in the way of what he has going at King's Landing and his manipulations, right? So I think it's interesting how like Tyrion, though, like he's no idiot. Like he sees that coming from a mile away. He's like, "Listen, bud, like he fucking you, like, don't fuck with me." Like, you know, he made sense.
Basically, said that you're making us outsiders because they're like the ones, the short ones, the one with nothing. Like what do they call them? The I always forget that name. But the one they use for it because he's got no balls.
Eunuch.
That's it.
Yeah.
I always forget it. Right?
And then he makes a comment, which I'm sure you loved, about he mentions to her about the girl. He's like, "Oh, why don't you let him try your fish pie?" And she says, "I don't think he likes fish pie. I can tell." He's like, "Oh, really? How do you know?" "I can always tell." Like basically saying that he's gay. Like, you know what I mean? So I always like those various scenes. He's a great character, but yeah, you know, it's funny because there's also another good line here where he says, "Oh yeah, don't worry, I'm very good at keeping secrets." He's like, "Oh yeah, your discretion is legendary amongst your friends." He's like, yeah, that's right. You know, he's just playing it along, right? Yeah. I just like how he says, he's like, "Listen, I'm not Ned Stark. Don't threaten me. I know how the game is played." That was the best. I was like, fucking right.
He straight up stood up to him. It's funny because he's like a little what's his name is it's like a Gossip Girl, like the way he is. He just likes to figure out and find out everything, man. It's hilarious. I kind of like his character.
But that's what he uses. That's his strength. That's what he uses for power and making moves on people, and basically working his way up the ladder. That's what he has.
Always one step ahead.
Yes, right. Yeah. So, but that's a thing. I think most
always on the right team. That's
absolutely. But I think most people though that he deals with aren't as smart as Tyrion. So Tyrion already fucking has the drop on him. Like he's like, "Don't try that with me." That's why he's like, I know what you're about. Like, right? Like, so
I read books.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a team. It's like,
so then, you know, we cut over to the council meeting that they're all together for, and well, Tyrion then starts going in on Cersei about the way that she's been, you know, ruling, and they're discussing some stuff, and she ends up tearing up another set of papers that they sent her about what's been going on, and he's like, "Oh, you've perfected the art of tearing papers." At this point, basically, because we've seen her do that numerous amounts of times. So at this point, Ned Stark's papers, all these people, like, he just rips all these fucking documents, right? Because a message was delivered to them about the North trying to separate from under their rule. Like their cousin Lannister is sitting there, the one that they let go to deliver this message. Yeah. And she kind of just rips it up in anger and says, you know, like, fuck this kind of thing, right? And he was, you know, Tyrion's taking a different approach. He's like, okay, good to know. You know, he's like trying to figure out the situation, right? And he's just fucking like, nope. Like, so two different approaches for sure.
Well, I noticed and this is when it leads into when they're coming to ask about the fucking bones back and stuff for Stark, right? They're always asking about that's that little conversation that him and her are having, right? During the talk, right? Or is this that's part you're coming up to?
About his bones?
Yeah, because the body wanted to bring it back to
right,
and she won't give him back, and he was telling her, you know, that she's she's like kind of like a badass, basically saying.
And then they let him, they send him on his way after that. The cousin, they're like, yeah, if you happen to run into him, deliver this message or whatever, and they kind of let him go, right?
Yeah.
But then they ask, what's that?
Instead they say that they do that, they'll hold the bones of the prisoner or whatever. Fuck, even to that, so you can't even give that to the, you know, it's just weird. Times are different, man. Holy fuck.
Oh, they basically won't. They aren't able to get peace as a result with the situation, right? They were not able to make peace with the passing of their loved ones as a result. So it's kind of like a war tactic, if anything, to fuck with their enemy, right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, then they discuss about how the Castle Black, the Night's Watch people are asking them for more men to basically guard the wall against the rising dead. And they're talking about the fact that the wildlings are out there as well. And you know, again, they're kind of like, Cersei gets up to like leave. They're like, oh yeah, all these stories about fucking the dead being reanimated, like all this shit. Like she's like, yeah, it's all bullshit. And Tyrion's like, regardless,
it's like that feeling. It's like, hey.
Well, he was just at Castle Black on his journey, right? So he kind of knows. He's like, listen, Mormont, which this is interesting. I didn't pick up on his name. Their Lord Commander on the Ninth Watch, the one that Jon Snow is with, his name is Jeor Mormont. That's Jorah Mormont's father.
Oh, okay. From
the one that's with the Khaleesi there. That's his father, the guy that's part of the Night Watch. That's his father.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Don't we notice this? Doesn't that come into play? No, that they talk about it, but
mentioned it at one point, but I didn't pick up on the fact that was like he's a Mormont. Like I remember, I forgot about it. So then when they mentioned it, because Tyrion was quick to mention, he's like, "Listen, Mormont doesn't lie." He's like, if he's saying that the dead is fucking rising and they killed one of them and all this, he's like, there's something to it. He's like, and then he says, because he doesn't necessarily believe it either, but he's like, he's been there now at this point, and he says to her, she's like, those men are protecting us for whatever's beyond the wall that we don't know, right? Like we should treat them with more respect. Like, and she's kind of just like, yeah, no, fuck it, I'm not sending any people out there, right? But like Tyrion, again, he's learned some on his journey there that he's like, this is worth helping these people, right? Like, you know,
keeping your eye on, you know what I mean? And it's worth, like, you know, it doesn't hurt to throw an extra 1,000 people to them, right?
Exactly.
That's all they were asking for, was 1,000 men or 100 men, something like that.
I think 100,
100 or 1,000, whatever. But still, you know, it makes, it at least gives them a hand, because they've already gone out there. Now they're going to see what the fuck's going on, as we figure.
Yeah. He's just so dismissive, you know what I mean? Like, and like this guy's approach, he's like actually trying to do a proper job, right? And like he actually shows certain people respect and listens and actually susses people out for his own, like, and you know what I mean? Like he doesn't trust himself and stuff like that. Like I just really like his approach. Like he actually is trying, and you know what I mean, at this point, like he's actually trying to do a good job as the hand to the king, right? And because, you know, who's not at these meetings? Joffrey. He's never fucking there. He's not actually the one that's making the decisions that make the city. You know what I mean?
I didn't see him this one. That's the thing. I didn't even see him this episode.
Yeah.
You know, did he get a break because now he's cool?
Yeah. The less we see of him, the better, quite frankly. As far as but anyways, then we cut back to the Night's Watch. The men are talking about, you know, all the
some of their old dirty stories.
Yeah, some of their past conquests and how many wives they've noticed that the Lord has that they're with there. The Lord, what's his name here? I got it here. You can put up his picture if you want here. This guy, his name is, where the hell did I write it down here?
I think I know which one you're going to look for if I look at the picture. Hold on.
Lord Craster's. Yeah, Lord Craster's. He's the guy that has all the wives and basically births the women from his daughters, essentially, and like marries his daughters. Like it's a whole weird situation.
Oh, isn't that the guy? It's a little fucking crazy. What's his name?
Lord Craster.
No, it's not.
You don't see him in this episode, which is why I was saying to you.
That's what I'm trying to look.
Google image some of the stuff. It might be good. I can bring it up here. Okay.
You're quicker than me.
I got it up. This guy here. Let me just. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So that guy is the guy that they're kind of currently with, because the Night's Watch was trying to get some assistance out there, going beyond the wall. So in this episode, they kind of, you know, they're talking about all the fact, you know, the operation that he's kind of got running here. And anyway, Sam gets up to go do something, and he sees a woman who's approached by Jon Snow's dog, Ghost, and she's scared by him. And he tells him, hey, you know, Ghost, you know, calm down, leave her alone or whatever. And he goes over and he goes to grab her to see if she was okay. And she freaks out a little when he goes to grab her. It's like, oh, you're not allowed to do that or whatever. And he's like, oh, sorry. I'm just trying to see if you were okay. And she calls him very brave, something that no one's ever called Sam, I feel like, in the Night's Watch.
Yeah, I tell you, he was getting a little crush on her for a second.
Well, he does. They get to talking clearly. They get to talking because she takes this opportunity, seeing that he's willing to help her, to basically let her know that she's pregnant and she wants to get the fuck out of there. So her name's Gilly, and she's one of Lord Craster's daughters, and she's pregnant with, I'm sure, his baby.
Which I'm sure his baby.
Yeah. And she's pregnant, and he brings her over to Jon Snow after speaking with her and tells him that it's their duty to protect her and to get her out of there. Like, she wants to escape. She wants them this, he starts trying to figure out a way they can sneak her away in the night. And Jon Snow is straight up against it. He's like, no, we're going against the Lord Commander's rules then. He refuses to help her. He asks her for some information that she's not really willing to give or to meet him halfway on. And he's just like, no, I'm not risking my life and our orders and everything. I'll show you. I'm sorry.
Sam even says he'll try to deliver the baby. That's what I thought was funny in that part.
That's
Yeah,
right, I'll
try.
Yeah, I know. I've read some stuff on this, right, on the subject. And John's just very adamant against it. He's like, no, like, we're not doing that. I'm sorry. And Sam kind of seems a little disappointed. He's like, oh, no, that's our duty to help her. The Night's Watch, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, no, like, we can't do anything for her. So that ends right there. Yeah. And we cut over to, I think this is maybe one of the only, it's one of the only scenes of Daenerys this episode, eh?
Yeah, because she's another one that's getting, like I said, now she's getting a break. She got a pay raise for this season probably, and now she gets a break.
So Daenerys is sitting with Jorah Mormont.
Yeah.
When a horse comes walking up to them, and they're still kind of working the way through the desert at this point. They seem both exhausted and out of it. And the horse walks up, and it's got a satchel on it. It's got a decapitated head in it.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Where would this have come from?"
Nice horse.
Yeah. Yeah. And he says, hey, could have came from one of your many opposers of you being a woman leader.
Yeah.
Could have came from these people, could have came from those people. I guess people that they've been around on their travels, like different people, right? And then it looks like the woman that's with them knows the man whose head is in the bag, and then she starts crying. Like, she runs over to them and starts crying. And so obviously, with all rulers, sometimes you're going to get opposition, like stuff, people that oppose what the person that's basically they're supposed to be following, have you, right? So
a big part of it is too because she is a woman, right?
A woman, yeah. They don't believe that they should be following a woman, right? So
she's got dragons. So fuck her, man. Sorry, I didn't see them this episode either. They took a break too.
Right. Right. Listen, we can't show dragons every episode. There's a small budget at this point, probably.
I know that last episode
this isn't literally called House of the Dragon. We don't got to show dragons every episode, okay? Even in House of the Dragon, you don't see dragons every episode, right?
I'm pretty, yeah. You almost
sorta.
At least a head or something, yeah. Go so.
Anyways, Lord Baelish, we come back over to him. This is a great scene. He's spying through a peephole in the whorehouse, basically seeing some other guy get a blowjob, and having sex, and he's watching somebody having sex, and the whole scene going on here, fucking with Baelish. It's a bordello, right? It's a fucking whorehouse.
The boat scene was first, like the little boats they were on the boat.
Oh, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. Yeah. You're right. Good call.
With the
then we see.
I remember that part.
Yeah, we see on Greyjoy. He tries showing off to a whore he's about to bang, and as sad as Theon is, he has to show off to like a woman he's paying to have sex with him, and then he's pretending that he's a badass. Then he goes to fuck her from behind, and you could tell she's not even into it. Like, he's banging her like a pussy. Like, it seems like.
You feel like she wants to read something. Like, there's if there was something, there's TV on, she'd be watching it, bro.
Yeah, playing this whole game. Oh, take me with you, blah blah blah. Yeah, because Theon at this point, he's on a journey to get his people, the Greyjoys, to help out with boats in Rob's effort to basically go to war against the Lannisters, as we know, right? So again, Theon gets no respect anywhere. So this is another instance where he has to show off to a paid whore while he's banging her, and basically say how much of a how important he is, essentially, right? Which continues through the episode. It gets pretty crazy later on. We'll get into that shortly, but this is just him. He's such a dick, this guy. He just gets no respect, and he's just looking for it everywhere, right?
Well, they talk about island wives and they talk about salt wives, and I'm going, what the fuck? Okay, well, ones are the ones you keep on your homeland, and when you go out to war, those are the other ones, the salt wives. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. I didn't think of that in my head. I'm not a sailor, obviously. So
it's like they're gumas, right?
Yeah.
To speak on a Sopranos basis, right? That lobster fucking perspective, right?
Yeah.
Gumas of the sea.
Yeah. Just I think it would just be straight up horrors of the sea.
Yeah. Sea gumas. They're not buying them nice things. So yeah, then we cut to Lord Baelish, who's being a little perv, watching somebody get a fucking blowjob. Listen, he's just taking notes. He works in this environment, right? He's trying to see what's going on with his horse.
He You might have to give one sooner or later. And I don't know. I haven't watched Only Happens season 2, dude.
All of a sudden, one of the men that's, I guess, with one of his prostitutes in the other room comes out, and he's really pissed off, and he mentions the fact that he's not having a good time with this other one, and she's crying, and he's like, "Oh, okay, don't worry, I'll take care of you." And he brings out some other whore, and he's like, "Yeah, go with him."
Mhm.
And then he proceeds to walk over to this other girl who's crying in the other room, all caring, like, goes up to her. He's like, "Oh, what's wrong?" Like trying to be like there for her. And she's a woman, not even the woman who was who had the baby, but she was a woman that witnessed, I guess, what happened to the other woman's baby in the whorehouse the other day that got killed by
it affected her. I mean, there was still mental illness back then too. I'm pretty sure.
Well, listen, it would still be something that would scar you if you saw it happen. I'm just saying it was not even the woman whose baby it was. It was another person, right?
What was throwing me off. I was like, why is she crying? And I couldn't figure it out.
So she goes in to mention this to him that, oh my God, what happened the other day with that woman's baby and they got killed. He's like, oh, I know. Wasn't that so terrible? And then he proceeds to tell her a story about how it reminds him. What's that?
He does. He uses the best. This is a good story. And he's so nice about it too. Like
he pretends like he cares at first. He's like,
really like even the way he delivers the lines, like, oh my God.
He's like, it reminds me of this woman I once knew. Basically, like, yeah, she she was sad about stuff and she had problems or something. He says some shit like that. But he's like, but listen, but then she turned out to be a bad investment. And I hate bad investments. He's
basically telling her to smarten up,
Yeah, it's to stop your fucking crying and go suck some cock. Like, that's what he fucking says to her, essentially.
Yeah, make me some money.
Well, nobody says to her. He's like, well, I do remember this one woman, she wasn't with it and she couldn't do her job. And guess what happened to her? I sold her off for quite a bit of money to somebody to kind of make back my investment, and who basically defiled her, like, and did things that no man I've ever seen do to another human being or something. Basically saying, like, I will fucking get rid of you, like, to the most disgusting fucking person ever that will do, like, make you his slave if you don't fucking, start getting back to work here, right? Like, but the way he delivers it, like I said, he seems so caring. He's like, oh yeah, really, oh, it's so sad. He's like, take the day and get back to fucking work tomorrow, essentially.
Take a day off, take the rest of the day off and come back, or get back to work tomorrow. But no, it was, he did it so nice. I wish I had a boss to talk to me like that, man.
I know, actually shows some care that he cares there, right?
Yeah, and even though if he's basically telling you fuck off, it's like even a nice way of almost getting fired. Like, if you could get fired somehow like that, that'd be crazy.
Then we cut over to Tyrion, who's he's sharing some wine with the commander of the city's watch, and they're talking, and he brings up the fact, again, also trying to be pleasant with them. Oh, call me Tyrion, and because he's like my lord and stuff like that. Oh no, just call me Tyrion. And this is probably my favorite scene of the episode. He's like, so I heard all this. What's that?
He's pretty badass, Tyrion, again in this one.
He says, "Here's about all that. I heard all this news about how you guys killed the baby the other day, right?"
Yeah. Smart, plays it smart. The wording, he watches his wording around that too.
Yeah, and then he basically, he throws out the fact that he thinks it's his sister that put him up to it. Questions his loyalty to his sister and her poor decisions that she makes, and questions his his decision even about attacking Ned Stark back when all that shit happened, when his men attacked him, right? And
he's got to really watch what he says when he says it like that, because it's kind of like it could be another form of being a traitor sort of thing.
Reason, right? Yeah. Well, but the way he says it to him, he's like, "Oh no, he tried to bribe me for me to help him out or whatever." That's what he says of Ned Stark. He's like, "Oh really? Well, it's because you were already in somebody else's pocket, weren't you?" Or like essentially, like basically saying like he already got paid off from his family, knowing how his family operates and how Cersei and was basically pulling the strings on this whole operation is what he's basically putting out there. And the guy's like trying to play stupid. He's like, "Oh no, I wouldn't say that. Listen, you know her better than I wouldn't say that about her," and all this. He's acting coy, right? And he's like, yeah, okay. Again, he's the smartest guy in the room. He's like, yeah, okay. Like, give me a break. Like, I know she put you up to this. Like, so it's just interesting because he starts bringing up all these indiscretions about shit that this guy has done or allowed to let go down. And he's just like, well, how about when you guys attacked Ned Stark? How about that? Right. He asks about the baby. And again, he's still like kind of being pleasant, but he starts accusing him of things, right? Like so the guy starts getting a little upset, right? That he's saying all this shit. And he gets mad and says he doesn't want to have his honor questioned. He's not going to sit here and have his honor questioned. Tyrion says he's like, oh no, it's not about me questioning it. It's about denying its existence. Like he basically says like, yeah, you're not loyal. Get the fuck out of here, loyal. Yeah. Like, you know, so, honor. Sorry, he says he has no honor, not loyalty. And then he basically, you know, he threatens him, gets up and calls him a dwarf, and he starts laughing. He's like, oh really? Okay, dwarf. Okay. And then here's my boy Bronn over here. Then Bronn comes out of nowhere. Right?
Yeah. Eh?
And then he proceeds to basically say, the guy is like the commander of the city's watch is like, well, we'll see what King Joffrey has to say about all this. We'll see what he has to say. He's like, no, we shan't. Tyrion's like, we won't be saying what he has to say about this. Tyrion's basically then sends him away to Castle Black. He's basically like, yep. So I had the pleasure of going over there. It's going to be fucking very unpleasant for you. Like he just says, he's like, yeah. And then he turns around and makes Bronn the new commander of the city watch right in front of him and tells him. Yeah, tells him fucking take this guy away. Like take this man away. Go to Castle Black.
This guy, he's just showing his balls, man. You know, they might be the closest to the floor, but they're there, man.
Fucking right. Like he's just like a boss, man. He just came in there. I just love again how he's just playing stupid. He's like, oh yeah, you know. So where were you on this decision? Like basically questioning like this guy, like and that's what I mean. Like he knows, like he takes
it's all up here, like
he knows, like he's just taking his time, like addressing everything, right? Like he's like a lot of shit, and that's what I like about him. He is honorable in that sense. Like even though he's a Lannister and everything else, he's a very straight up guy. Like if you're straight up with him and treat him with respect, like he'll give you it right back for everything that I've seen of his character in this show at this point. Like, you know what I mean? Even like. The guy makes a comment about the kid that's helping him out, and he basically calls him like useless. The guy that's helping him, like he's bringing in the wine and stuff. He's oh no, I like the ones that aren't that capable of doing. Like he basically, you know, he looks out for the little guy, Terry, because he is a fucking little guy, right?
Yeah. hence, you know, but yeah.
So but then he turns to Bronn after, you know, they're sitting there, they'll have like shit-eating grins on their face about what they just did. And he's like, if I told you to murder a baby, would you do it without question? Basically, like seeing what Bronn would have done in this situation. He's like, no, not without question. I'd ask how much. And then he just like looks at him.
But he kind of like, I didn't know if it was a look of disgust or if it was a look of like
more of I think it was more of that and more of like, okay, I'm starting to learn who this guy is, you know what I mean? Like I think he has to keep him at arm's reach. He knows that he's not loyal to him. Essentially, it's a situation of
himself. Really, at the end of the day, I feel like he's more just loyal to himself, right?
It's more of a situation of convenience so far for him. And like, listen, he's helped him out, but he knows, like, listen, now he's the Lord, the king, he's the lead of the city watch, right? The commander of the city watch. So it's helped him out. Like, and Tyrion has said that, like, he's like, I'll give you money. You know, he's putting him in his corner because he's been helpful for him, but it's at a cost, right? It's not like I want to do this out of the kindness of my heart.
Or it's not that he has to do it. It's because Tyrion saw, you know, he's got his hand. He's always dishing something out for it.
Right. So he's just kind of learning about him, right?
Then that relationship ends up.
Yeah. But I like Bronn. He's good.
Document that one and see where that one goes. I don't know.
Then
say he's good. I'm worried now. Like I'm getting now. He's gonna die off next season or something. Next episode.
I don't know if you have a picture of him. If you want to put it up, maybe throw that up. Then
we're switching to Arya. Yeah.
Then we go over to Gendry and Arya. They're getting to know each other a little bit. He questions why she was afraid of them finding her earlier, and she kind of lets him know, that who she is eventually. And at first he says that he knows she's a girl, and then she's like, I'm not a girl, I'm a boy. He's like, oh yeah, pull your cock out and take a piss then. And then she's like, I don't have to piss right now. And then eventually breaks her down, and she admits that she's a girl, and that not only is she a girl, but she's Arya Stark. And then he makes, he busts her balls basically about being royalty. He starts making jokes to her about the fact, oh, I shouldn't be addressing you this way. You're royalty or whatever, right? So that she gets all upset. She's like, don't say that to me. And she wants to be treated like everybody else, right? She kind of walks off, right? So
it's not like they don't know. It's weird.
Yeah.
Right? they know.
Because he mentions Ned Stark, and then she's like, wait, what's Stark? Like, he's like, yeah, Ned was my father. He's like, yeah, but he was a traitor, and she's like, he wasn't a traitor. No, that's not true, right? So they get into this whole conversation.
Yeah,
that's a good scene. They get to know each other a little bit. So coming up here, though, you were able to get a picture there, or?
No, I didn't get it.
Okay, I'll bring it up here.
Out of all of them, that's the one I didn't get. I don't have here.
Yeah, this is why for some of these. I'm sure the first appearance of these people, if we keep on them now moving forward,
yeah, this guy is just really, it's not a big, he's only got a small part, right? So in this one, so he's not actually in the cast part, but I don't see it yet. And even as top cast is not in there, I don't see it.
Yeah, this is him here.
Yeah.
And then Theon, we cut back over to him. This is JT's favorite part of the episode, I believe. Theon tries to barter with somebody, basically, and tries to, get by on by whom he is basically in his own place right there, right? Like now, like he's near his people essentially, and he fails to basically get what he's looking for from the guy, and then he ends up having to bribe him basically to get to his castle, his father's castle, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And then he goes and fetches somebody that brings a horse for him to get onto the back of and help travel him there.
Yeah.
And he actually busts out the line, do you know who I am? He's like, oh yeah, to the woman that comes on the horse. Oh, Lord Greyjoy, of course. He's like, yeah, of course I'll offer you to take you where you got to go. So I have a question at the end. Let me set this up. Let me explain what happens here, Jay, because I have a question for you. This has always been something that's troubled me about this scene in the show, okay?
Okay.
So the woman offers to take him where he has to go on the horse. So they started going on the horse. During the horse ride, being the perv that he is, he starts fondling her during the horse ride, like grabbing her tit, going in her pants a little bit. And, she's kind of like gigglish about it and kind of allowing it to go down, but it's continuing on, but not really kind of partaking in it herself, but she's kind of riding the horse, right? So he makes it to his father in his castle there. And basically, there's this whole conversation about how it's been 9 years that he's been with the Starks, and questions the way he dresses now and the necklace that he has. Basically, he thinks he's showing off because of the, the royalty that he's been with the Starks compared to the Greyjoys, right? And mentions about the necklace on his neck. Did it come from gold or iron? Like, essentially, did he kill somebody to get get the necklace around his neck, or did he pay for it outright? And he's like, disappointingly, he's like, gold, and he's just like, he rips it off his neck, right? So he's talking some shit with him. He doesn't like
Stark made him a pussy, and
basically,
right?
So then he kind of delivers the letter from Robert that's kind of pitching this idea that if they help them out in their war efforts against the Lannisters, they will make him the king of the Iron Islands again, which essentially he isn't right now. The Greyjoys have, I guess, been stricken of this title, right? So, which he doesn't agree to. Like, he doesn't agree to it. He doesn't, he's not happy about it. He's like, oh yeah, I see what they fucking brought you over here for. Oh really? The Starks? Okay, yeah, fuck them, essentially, right? Then he ushered, then the girl that rode him there on the horse, he starts yelling at her because he sees her coming into the room that they're having this conversation, saying like, who let you in here? How'd you get in here? Like, I told you to wait outside, blah, blah, blah. Then he finds out it's his sister, the girl that he was fucking fondling on the horse on his way over here, that he hasn't fucking seen in 9 years. I guess she was young, like small at the time, but now like she's a grown woman. And he was hitting on her, and then the guy turns around, his father, and basically says, like, I wouldn't allow you to take our men and help out with this. Like, I'm going to send her to lead them.
Yeah.
And then he mentions, like, oh, yeah, no, she wouldn't do good up against the Lannisters. What do you do? He's like, I'm not going up against the Lannisters. So now it seems like they're fucking going to go against the Starks, and that she's going to be leading the way. So this whole plan of this has totally fucking backfired once again, because no one fucking gives this guy any respect. His father, people at whores, like anybody that runs into this guy, just fucking, this guy gets no respect, right?
Look.
He's like Rodney Dangerfield. But here's my question. No respect. Oh, here's the question though I have for you. Why would she allow him to do that and not fucking like because she thought it would be funny? Like, I know they didn't actually bang or anything, but he's fondling her. She's allowing it to go down. Like,
It's
I get it.
incest, bro, man. We know what's going on in these fucking shows and these
A lot of them
times.
are committing incest. I get it, but like, I don't understand why she would then spring this on him after the fact. Like, it's not funny. Like, he's just like, and that's my first question. Other than the fact,
Basically, to say that she had the control over him, maybe.
not only that, how does this guy not fucking know that that's his sister? Like, I get it. You haven't seen her for 9 years. You don't, there's no like you have no recollection of what this person looks like. I guess it's different because we're not like looking at pictures and phones and everything else like back, like now, I guess.
Yeah.
But 9 years, bro, like, come on. Like, I like you.
Well, I mean, that gap, 9 years where their ages right now, I'm pretty sure 9 years is a big gap. Like, I mean, it's a lot of changes through that, especially, you know, that's the period time when she becomes a woman. Yes, I could, but I don't know. I don't have a sister, so I can't fucking tell you what it's like. I mean, if I didn't see my brother in 9 years, he still looks the same he did 9 years ago. So I'm not worried, man.
I just think it's weird that like he has no idea that that's his sister like the whole time. The guy, so like that's
Maybe he just doesn't care.
no, he was shocked. He was genuinely surprised like that was his sister. He had no idea.
But why did she allow it? Did she just want to get off?
I don't know.
I don't know. This is it is confusing. It is confusing. It's one that's gonna have to be left up in the air because I can't answer that. I don't know what that's like, man.
I've always wondered that part about that. I always thought that was a weird fucking move on her part. Even in a show where people are having sex with their sisters, this was
Look at the father was a weird guy too. I mean, maybe it just runs in the family.
I don't know. I thought that was a weird flex. Like, oh yeah, this is my brother, and I'm gonna trick him. Like, who's like honestly, like what payback is that? Ha, that was me you were fondling. Like, what? Like, yeah, I guess you would feel horrible if that's not something he'd be interested in after the fact. But why would she allow it to go that far? I have no idea. Even if you just went for a tit grab, and then she was like,
"Say about girls riding horses get turned on." I think.
I don't know.
You know, the
I guess
motion. Maybe that she just needed the help.
Yeah, well, that's
she
all.
She had to hold the horse, bro, and make sure it went the right way, so she couldn't do it herself. So she just needed an extra hand. Yo, bro, help me out. I'll tell Dad after. I don't know.
Yeah,
you tell me I go to weird places. That was a weird one for me, man.
Yeah, that was a weird move. Anyways, we cut from that over to Lord Davos. Lord Davos Seaworth is his name, and that's Stannis is basically the hand to Stannis, essentially, to that king. So I don't know if you have that up.
What was his name?
Lord Davos.
Oh, Davos.
I
think I have a picture of him. I think I know who he is.
This guy here.
Yeah, I was gonna put that one up. That's one. It says right there in the first thing. This is now when we're going to go see some new people.
Yeah. So well, I mean, he was in the last episode.
Yeah, he was, but the people that we're gonna go.
Oh, the pirate. Yeah.
The pirates.
So he goes to speak with some pirates who he's basically asking for help and to aid them in their war efforts against the Lannisters here, King's Landing, because he's speaking for Stannis Baratheon, who they think is the rightful heir to the throne now. They're supposed to be king. Mm-hmm. And Lord Davos is basically his hand essentially to the king. And he's head of his own house, Lord Davos of Seaworth, and they mentioned that he's a smuggler in this scene, like in his past, and he like the pirates. It's like he doesn't understand how he's like, why this is a weird world we live in here. Like the king is making smugglers go out and speak for him in his place, like essentially for him. He's like, and so. Anyways, they're longtime friends. They've known each other for a long time, so he agrees to end up helping him out because he promises that he'll get him gold. And he'll get him glory, essentially, from their war efforts against the Lannisters, because he's convinced that they'll be able to overthrow. And, his son, I guess, is with him at this point, and he kind of talks shit about, like, why are we asking these pirates for help? And the guy's like, you think I'm ashamed of being a pirate? He's like, certainly not. And then there's a great funny scene where he basically says all that he wants out of this whole conquest is to fuck Cersei, essentially. He's like, oh, that blonde. He's like, I want to fuck her. He's like, and then his son's like, what, you want to just rape this? He's like, I'm not going to rape her. I'm going to fuck her. He's like, I'm very persuasive. I've never tried to fuck you. Like, he basically says, like, he thinks he can bag her essentially if given the chance, right? Like that's all he wants.
I'm
And
doing
like
the picturing, and I'm doing the picturing of how he said it yesterday in the scene. Man. That's why I'm
he's
just dying.
very persuasive. And then Lord Davos basically at the end of the conversation is like, listen, I can promise you the gold and the glory. I can't promise you the queen. He's like, okay, all right, if you believe in it, I'll follow you into battles, essentially. So they make a deal essentially at the end of that, right? Then there's a whole conversation that Davos, after they had this interaction, as he's walking off and talking to his son there, he doesn't understand his loyalty and like the things that he's doing for Stannis. And basically he says like Stannis is my god, essentially, he says, because he starts questioning his decisions and stuff like that. And, you know, the son doesn't understand the loyalty. He mentions how like he was at home when he was out and about when he was younger, worried about him and everything else and praying to God and this type of shit. And he's like, Stannis is my god. I believe in him. I believe what he's doing. Like he's very loyal. You can tell this guy and believes in who he's serving right now, Lord Davos, right?
Yeah.
And then it cuts over back to Tyrion with Cersei. Tyrion again starts, you know, question.
Best line, bro, in that one that they had there in that interaction.
Yeah.
Meeting with the pirates and all that. Is it says the one true gold is between the women's legs. See, they even knew that back then, bro.
Right.
Right? And that's so funny because it goes comes basically right after the scene where she was using it between her legs to get his fucking mind fucked up.
That's
you know
right.
What I mean, this is all carefully plotted, or if like it was a book, right? Beforehand, so I would have thought this was a book, right?
It was.
Yeah, so it was well written if that was the case, because if they really got
know that for certain.
I don't know that for certain, but I mean, you would probably know that better than me. But yeah, no, I don't know, but I'm thinking it would be.
Yes, it's a book.
Yes, it's a book. It's
Tyrion,
not just a TV show, Jack.
Tyrion tells Cersei that she's losing people with the way that she's doing things. Essentially, people's loyalty in King's Landing, like the people don't really like them. You know that they're ruling essentially. Mm-hmm. And you know, talking about how like their decisions to slaughter babies and everything else, and you know, that she doesn't care, and basically, you know, he while talking to her, he figures out for himself that it's possible that Joffrey's actually the one that put that order out, not his sister, who he assumed originally. And then he says, like, but did you know that he did that, or did you allow it? Because that would make it even worse. Like he basically says to her, he's like, because if Joffrey went off and did this on his own, that's one thing. Like gave the order to kill the baby. Because like the way that she doesn't respond to him when he mentions about this type of shit, he's like looking at her, trying to read her, and he's like, you didn't know, did you? Or like, you know what I mean? Like he's like, you didn't give that order, did you? Right. So I mean, this seems like something Joffrey would do. He seems very much more brutal at this point than his decision making, right? But
no choice, because she's gonna get slapped by Joffrey.
That could be it too, right? So it's hard to read her, right? We don't really know for sure at this point. Who's to say, right? But then the conversation ends with Cersei basically. Well, this is a good line that you probably liked. You know, Cersei turns around and is basically, you know, criticizes Tyrion, saying how Jaime and him never took being a king seriously, and it's all fallen on her. And Tyrion says, "Yeah, and also Jaime has been falling on you, according to Stannis Baratheon, right, as well." And basically, you know, she turns around and
but he can say that to her. It's his sister, right? He's allowed to say that. He can say whatever he wants.
Cersei, in retaliation, though, turns around and says basically that, oh yeah, that's very funny. You've always been very funny, and then basically blames him for killing their mother at birth and says that, you know, that he's the only joke essentially as a result of that, and kind of walks out.
Yeah, that one hit him hard. Eh? That was like, you fucking bitch.
Tyrion's kind of sitting there like looking down. He's just like, fuck yeah. He's like, because she says how you killed my mother, and he's like, she was also my mother. Like he says, he's like, yeah, okay, like, you know.
But basically, because he didn't meet her, really. If she could, you know, that's basically what he's saying, right? She's saying she's not so stupid herself. It doesn't seem, and that's you know. So that should be an interesting duo, those two.
Then we cut back over to Stannis, who gets the news of the pirate joining their efforts from Lord Davos, and he asks everyone to basically leave him in the throne room after that. He's left with the witch woman, or I think her name's Danya. I don't know. Do you want to look her up? Do you have a picture of her? Yeah, it's
the one at the end.
Yeah, she says, you know, he must give himself over to the Lord of the Light in order to win his war, because, you know, she's been kind of cooking up some black magic shit. Like in the last episode, you seen like a whole ritual of some sort. Like she's basically trying to help out in his war efforts with some sort of like voodoo. Who the fuck knows, right? So, by the end of that, after saying that to him, though, she bangs him and promises her a son as he's fucking entering her, basically, and he's ramming her on the table, and he's like, she promises him a son, and she's really got her claws in him, this chick, like, right? I don't know whether or not this is a good thing, but it seems like she's manipulating the situation a little bit at this point, right? So with her,
she's a little much.
With her magic.
With her vagina. No, but yeah.
Picture of her? No,
I don't have her on here yet. What is her name?
I
didn't write it down. That's the one I wrote. I didn't even write who it was because that's the one. I'm just getting used to these new characters. I started going.
I wrote the name down wrong. That's not her name. Hold on.
She's not actually in the picture here. So, like, they have pictures on the episode, but she didn't see her in this one. So, but yeah, I know which one you're talking about. I don't see her. When you go to Game of Thrones and you go and you look at their all episodes, maybe, but
you had one job, man.
No, I know.
There she is, the redhead one here. That's standard.
What's her name now?
Right here.
What's her name? Did you say? Because you said you guys had it wrong.
Melisandre. Yeah, Melisandre is her name. I put down. What the fuck did I write down here? I thought Danya. I heard something wrong there.
Oh yeah, here this one. Yeah,
Melisandre.
Claire's Van Houten.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. And the episode ends with John sneaking into the woods. I guess it looks like he had second guessed his decision and not helping out that girl. So he sneaks out in the middle of the night to maybe get a better look as to what's going on. And I believe we get the answer to what they had asked previously in the last episode about what happens to all the boys that are born as a result of this, the fact that he's got all these women that give birth constantly to new women for him to marry. This lord there in that situation. It looks like they're bringing kids into the woods, and if I had to guess, those are probably the boys, and they were getting rid of them, killing them, or something like that. Because it seems.
Well, I hear creatures. I heard something growling at the end, and I'm going. You see a person there, but you don't know because it's actually Jon Snow in a sense. So you don't know if his fucking wolf was around somewhere, right? Growling, but not attacking.
But again, I know we don't know for sure, but I think he was trying to do some investigative shit here.
You see the silhouette of something running off, right?
Yes.
But I mean,
they're doing something. You hear crying of a child.
Almost.
You're crying of a child. We do know that there's a mystery involved of what they do with some of the children that are born here, which they already kind of posed in the last episode to us as viewers.
Yeah.
And then what ends up happening is while he's sneaking around, he fails to hear the guy that comes up from behind him. He turns around, he knocks him out. End of the episode, black, right? So
that's why I'm wondering. I don't, like I said, I'm going, what was growling? Because that got confusing too. Because if it was his wolf, then his wolf would have attacked that guy sneaking up on him, right? So it's kind of like
he was tripping out because he was hearing all these sounds in the woods and everything else. But I think that the whole point of him going there was trying to see what was going on with the situation at this place, right? Because everything kind of seems weird about the operation they got going on there. He had a lot of questions. So did the other guy, his friends and everything else. And if I had to guess, I think he was probably just second guessing if he made the right decision about what's happening at this castle, right? Essentially that they're at with this lord, right? So I mean, decent episode. I think the MVP is again Tyrion for me, at least in this one.
He's been doing really good. I mean, Jon Snow had some fucking little parts where he was, freaking out and trying to be boss and trying to be a leader in a sense, but in his own little head, right? With his buddies. But yeah, Tyrion is always the comedian. He's just witty. He's smart. Yeah, I mean, if you're not paying attention to, you gotta really focus sometimes, because with the accent, when you get that quick, sometimes with his accent, when he does a very good accent too, right? So an English accent or whatever it is there, a Game of Thrones accent, we'll just call it.
Well, he sounds very regal, like he's royalty. You know what I mean? Like he does. The way he speaks is very proper compared to a lot of the other people on the show. His articulation, like the words that he uses, or you know what I mean? You could tell that
words that are coming out of his mouth.
Not
like me.
Yeah. But yeah. So there you go. Episode 2, guys. The Nightlands, season 2 of Game of Thrones. We're gonna still be putting these out weekly, hopefully for you guys. And we've been pretty consistent on dropping them Thursdays. But once again, follow us, follow the journey along with us. If you're watching this show for the first time, it's very interesting. And as we get deeper into the seasons, like you said, if you're a fan of Game of Thrones, you know us. Let us know if you want to come on and speak on some of the episodes with us. That'll be fun. Because there's some good ones coming up. So I mean, once we get to season 3, I think it's some crazy shit starts happening past this one. So that I know of for a fact. So
I really for a fact. It's like, okay, thanks. Don't spoil it for me. I just want to.
Yeah.
Keep
this is Jay's first time watching it, everybody. So don't hit up Jay with some spoilers and be like, hey, how about this crazy shit? As you can tell, this is where we're at right now in the season. So we watch ahead a little bit sometimes, but not too far ahead. Maybe a couple weeks at a time we watch, right? So I mean, that's probably the most at this point. So don't spoil it for Jay. This is my second time watching it, but it's also been fun for me in that sense. So make sure you're subscribed, guys, and watch all of our other videos here, different playlists here on the Late Night Chat Network. All kinds of great stuff always coming out from our end.
Yeah, we try.
All right, guys. We'll see you guys next week, though. Jay, anything else?
Well, let's sell for my life next week. We'll see. Otherwise, Nico has a replacement to do Game of Thrones.
There you go. I already got
my throne.
I already got one lined up. All right, guys.
All right, man.
Later.
Peace out.